próximamente. Entonces, bueno, con eso les damos la bienvenida a todos. David, hello, how are you?
Muy bien, gracias.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. We're very excited to talk to you. Basically, you are our brother of development from San Diego. And as you and as many of us have a vision of this area as being one whole metropolitan area, which includes San Diego and Tijuana. As you know, a lot of our daily life here in Tijuana is very influenced by development in the United States, especially in San Diego. And this particular project that you're working on, the sports arena, it's somewhere there we are very familiar with, being from Tijuana. I was mentioning that a lot of us in our younger age used to go to Kobe swap meeting, in fact, to work there. A lot of Mexicans used to go the weekends and build the tents and all this. So we have a special bond to that project. So the first thing that I'd like to do is ask you if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and about your firm, David.
Of course. Well, first of all, this is a great pleasure to have the chance to speak with this group. My career in real estate goes back 40 years, and I've had the opportunity to work with large companies. I worked at Walt Disney Company for 10 years. I worked with Trizicon Development for 8 years. I've now had my own firm for 12 years. So my perspective as a developer is both working in large organizations as well as being an entrepreneurial developer. And I've had the chance to work on some wonderful projects. New Amsterdam Theater in New York, which transformed 42nd Street. I did a project called Hollywood and Highland in Hollywood, which included retail, entertainment, a hotel, a theater where the Academy Awards are held. And that had a transformative effect on Hollywood over the last 20 years, almost $2 billion of investment. And over the last 12 years, I've been doing a project in downtown San Diego called Idea District. Innovation, design, education, and arts. Those are the pillars of the project. And we have done a number of projects there. We have other colleagues who have done projects, and that has that's changed the character of the Upper East Village. So I like to say that my specialty in the development world is doing transformative projects. And it's the thing that I'm most passionate about, because in my sense of our responsibility as developers, it's not just building buildings. We're really creating communities. We're making places that people live and work and play and create. And it's a responsibility I take very, very seriously. And to do work that has long-lasting beneficial impacts is extremely satisfying to me. And so I try to make sure that I have a team of like-minded professionals who share those values, because it's really those values that end up shaping the character of the project that you do. And I've got some of the team members on Sports Arena here, David McCullough and Ben Arcia, have both been involved very actively for the last 2 years on the shaping of Sports Arena, which is a really interesting project. I look forward to telling the story about how the project evolved and sort of where we stand right now.
Okay, that's wonderful. And you're thinking, I love the way that you're thinking. The idea is that we should all think like that. That way we would have better cities, very different cities, in fact.
I feel deeply, by the way, that having that kind of consciousness about the larger impact, the sort of district-wide impacts, is also good business, right? Because I think increasingly we're in a world where the stakeholders that are involved in our work feel very much that they have ownership. Even if they don't have actual ownership, they have ownership in the outcome. And so by engaging with stakeholders in a way that brings them into the process of planning and thinking about and creating and feeling like they've got an opportunity to influence the outcome, I think you make more successful projects. And really, all of us are in the business of getting those stakeholders to fall in love with our work, right? Whether they're renters or purchasers or they're retail or they're just coming there to recreate. If they feel that it's their place, they bring their friends, they bring their family. They start to talk about the place as if it has a very different character than if it's just something that a developer does, right? So I think that's a direction that all of us as professionals in this business, we should really be mindful of that.
Yeah, well, I think it's a new, it's picking up this trend of what you're talking about is like picking up every time. We don't think the way that we did last 10 years ago.
Right.
I think that most developers are really committed now to participate in creating community instead of just creating projects. So that's a good way that we're going.
Right.
Okay, so we are ready for the presentation. You can go ahead and share.
Wonderful.
I would say that if anybody wants to ask any questions, you could write it in the chat and we'll do it at the end, okay?
That would be terrific. So I'm going to share with you a presentation that literally we just finished revising the presentation 2 days ago. This is a exciting moment for us. We had just been shortlisted by the city of San Diego on this 48 acres. There were 5 teams, there are now 3 teams, and that's going to become official next week when the project goes to the Land Use and Housing Committee at City Council. We haven't been selected yet, so we take nothing for granted. But what we think we have done is we cast a very compelling vision for how this project can transform the entire Midway district. And for those of you who know Midway, you know Midway is less than it could be. It's wonderful real estate. The bones are great, but because of that 30-foot height limit, developers have not been able to realize enough value from development to do anything other than just build low-rise and strip clubs and gas stations and in different uses. So this would be the first of a new generation of development. And because of that, we wanted to make sure we set the tone, not just from an economic standpoint, but also from a design standpoint. So let me share with you a little bit of our thinking about the possibility for Midway Village. And I encourage your questions, your comments. I think that this, for me, would work better if it's a dialogue. So yes, you certainly could put something in chat, but if you have a question, just feel free to jump in.
Okay, sounds great.
So let me start with the numbers. It's a big, ambitious project, over 4,210 new homes. 1,610 of those are affordable below 80% AMI, average median income. So the city very explicitly in this case wanted a lot of affordable housing because we have a crisis of housing and even more of a crisis in the lack of affordable housing in the San Diego area. So over 50% of the homes that we're creating are either below 80% or under 110% of AMI, and then the balance of our market rate. Our team is unique in that we have 3 entertainment venues. We have a 15,000 seat new arena. We have a 12,000 seat soccer stadium for the San Diego Loyal, which is our soccer club. We have a 3,500 seat events hall. But it's not just about numbers or even primarily about numbers. We're creating a new community here. So our view is that communities thrive when there's a mix of uses. So we have about 300,000 square feet of office space, 150,000 square feet of retail. We have a new hotel, and everything was built around the park. So when Dave and I started noodling this project a couple of years ago, it started as an open space plan. How do we create a wonderful central gathering place, not just for the project, but for the entire district? Because open space adds value. It's very important as a planning principle. If you create wonderful public environments, wonderful parks, and they're beautifully managed and maintained and programmed, it adds value to all the surrounding real estate. So we started with a park plan, and then we figured out how do we build around that.
David, how many seats does the sports arena have currently?
It has about 14 to 15,000, depending on the configuration. So it's approximately the same size, Hector, but it's a horrible facility. It's 60 years old and it hasn't been properly maintained. And we looked very closely at it to try to determine whether or not it could be salvaged, and we determined that it couldn't.
So these new seats, basically, it's a new sports arena. It's not
brand new sports arena, right? So if you look at the site plan, this is our site plan. The current sports arena sits right here. So as a part of our project, we demolish the sports arena and build a brand new one. The phasing of this project is very important to understand because in large scale development, often the most difficult thing is to get started. So the way we get started here is with the new modular soccer stadium. And I've got an image later in the proposal. So the Loyal right now plays at USD at Torero Stadium. They've got about 6,000 seats there. By the time that we're able to deliver, which would be 2025, approximately 3 years from now, we can deliver them a new stadium. They believe they're going to need 12,000 seats, which would be the next step up in terms of their maturation as a club. But we don't just build a soccer stadium. Our intention is to build a whole series of recreational uses, including some temporary soccer venues, so that we activate. Because when you're in the business of doing transformative projects, the first thing you have to do is you have to change people's perception of the site. So trying to figure out how do you create a transformational use was part of the plan. I'm
sorry to interrupt, but what do you think is the San Diegans' perception of the site right now of sports arena?
It's horrible. I mean, it's horrible. It's wasteland. It's a big, old, ugly arena with a lot of surface parking, which is poorly maintained. And, you know, they go to Kobe's. Kobe's is fun and it's a tradition. But, and we'd like to figure out how to utilize pieces of Kobe's. But right now, it's an eyesore. And so it needs something to reinvent it. And I would point out that when you do these kinds of projects, you should never be bounded by the 48 acres or the site itself. You always need to think much more broadly. You need to think about a district plan. How do you connect with both existing uses, and even more importantly, how do you start to encourage other uses that are going to start to make the entire place better? So that becomes part of the planning paradigm. So the 48 acres that's subject to the RFP is what I'm outlining here. But what we said to the city is, hey, you know, if you'll work with us and give us an option on the adjacent 17 acres where Sports Arena Village is, we would then come back, and we would build a permanent soccer stadium. So J, letter J, is a 20,000 seat permanent soccer stadium. And then I has about 1,000 units of additional housing. So just in terms, big picture phasing, A would be delivered in 2025. Then we deliver the sports arena district, right? It's not just one use. There's a hotel, there's a music venue, there's parking, there's retail, there's hotel, there's the park space. As a part of that phase, we also deliver a great deal of the housing. Once that's completed, we would either pivot and then come back and do this part of the project, or if the city works with us on this site, we would do this part of the project, so that if this is completed by 2032, the Loyal would move over to this location, and then we would come back and redevelop this. So the plan that you're seeing is a 15-year build out, and it's about $3.5 billion, a very large, complex plan.
$3.5 billion investment, and it's going to
total investment,
and it's going to take 15 years.
15 years build out, right?
Here goes my first question. How do you get governments, when they change mayors or when they change city councils, to follow up on this project? Because that's
it's a great question. Well, you know, we do have a mayor who's only been in for a year. He'll probably get reelected, so that gives us another 7 years of runway.
Okay.
Oh, these projects, it's a great question, Hector. These projects only happen with leadership on the public side. You know, everybody thinks it's the private sector's responsibility to do this work. That is very short-sighted. It needs strong advocacy from the public sector to make it happen. You need a champion on the public side that's just as committed and as passionate and as entrepreneurial as the private sector. And without that, you can't do projects like this. If people just think it's business as usual, they're wrong. You'll never make a project like this happen. So arguably the biggest challenge we have right now is making sure we've got partners on the public side who are experienced, who are passionate, and are willing to do the things that are necessary to make this happen. If we're successful, we'll negotiate a development agreement that will lock in all of our approvals and entitlements. But with personality changes, sometimes interpretation changes. So it's not easy to make sure that the original vision ends up being what the project ultimately realizes.
Would you say that this is one of the biggest challenges?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you hope that with goodwill on both sides that you end up crafting an agreement that's flexible enough to accommodate changes in the marketplace, because that's the other thing that you have to do. We're not smart enough to know right now what the world's going to look like in 10 or 15 years. So we need to make sure we have a plan that's flexible enough to accommodate the market as the market changes.
Okay.
So here's how we get started, right? This is about housing. That was the first and the most important priority that the mayor laid out. So you can see the levels of affordability here. And this is extraordinary, right? That we're building 1,610 units below 80% AMI. 100 of these units would be for sale. So we're partnering.
AMI?
That's average median income. So when you calculate affordability, you're always looking at what's the median income of that zip code, basically, and then what you're doing is you're creating product at different levels of affordability. So, for example, from 30 to 60%, which is where the bulk is, these are people that are making annually between 30 and 60% of the area median income, which takes into account how many kids they have, because that median income changes if it's husband and wife and kids, right? So what does that mean? What it means is that if you do a market rate product, you can finance 70 to 75% of it with a loan, right? And the rest of it would be equity. But if you're doing something where you're only getting a third to a half of the income because you're building intentionally for people who have lower incomes, it means you have to come up with that much more equity. That's the gap that you have to fill. And that equity gap is made up of tax credit investors, because there's tax advantages to investing in affordable housing. It has to be made up by government money. It has to be made up by philanthropic money, soft loans. It's very complicated to come up with the financing that actually makes affordable housing work, which is why it's hard to build affordable housing, because the costs don't go down, right? Revenue goes down, but the costs of developing the housing don't go down.
Okay. So it's not just the cost of the land that gives the price, the end price. It's also a lot of people have to participate, basically.
Absolutely. Well, you know, in development, it's the cost of the land. It's government imposing costs. It's the cost of your financing. It's all of your soft costs. All of those form your total development costs. You know, and in a market environment, you know, you can adjust rents to be able to, you know, cover 70 plus or minus % with enough coverage for your lender to be able to be comfortable, and the rest of it is equity. Affordable housing is a totally different paradigm.
I just want to jump in real quick, Dave.
Yeah.
Can we, I think it'd be good to share with everyone that this is not the original, this whole process started out not being an affordable housing exercise.
Correct.
And we had to pivot as a team to address that. I don't know if you want to give them a bit of background.
Well, yeah, it actually started 2 years ago. You know, we as a team formed our concept for how do we do something that would be uniquely San Diego and a successful project, but we didn't have the imposition, the overlay that it had to be 25% affordable. So we had a different plan with less housing, more open space, and more commercial uses. For a bunch of reasons, the original proposal, which by the way, we didn't win, it was won by another group. That original proposal was changed because it was determined that the city did not follow what's called the Surplus Lands Act in offering this site to the public. So it came back out again 6 months, 7 months ago, Ben. And then we reformed the team, but there were new rules. And those rules were that we had to have a minimum of 25% affordable. And unlike the last time when it was done,
25% of the units that you build have to be affordable housing?
Correct. That's
Wow.
correct. Right.
Okay.
Right. So, but it was kind of an arms race, Hector, because we had this competition between 5 teams. So that your minimum was 25%, but since city was putting such a big priority, the state was putting such a priority on affordability, people were trying to increase the amount of affordable. When you increase the amount of affordable, it makes that gap, that equity gap, that much larger. So the economics of this project are very challenged, and we're going to need a lot of investment from the public side in order to make this kind of a project successful. But they have stated that their policy goal is to make this project happen. So we think there's going to be creativity in order to realize this you know, what's now a very ambitious vision.
Okay.
I just can't overemphasize how important it is to have an experienced team doing a project of this size and complexity. So we've assembled a development team, and our combined skills have led to over $40 billion in development projects. We've done 12 sports arenas and stadia. We've done 107,000 housing units, but either managed or built. And our team combined has done over 60 million square feet of mixed use development. The way we've structured our team is that it has 3 partners at the master developer level. Bridge Housing is one of the most successful, one of the most respected affordable housing developers in the state, if not the country. So you see some of their numbers here. They have great financial wherewithal and a really sophisticated development organization. Toll Brothers is one of the largest housing builders in the country, Fortune 500 company, 11 billion balance sheet. So why does that matter? To do this project is going to take, I'm guessing, between $10 and $20 million of risk capital, pre-development capital, before we know whether all of the pieces of the project are going to come together.
$10 million, you said?
$10 million, yes. We're going to be
before any construction gets started.
Exactly right. We're going to spend $10 million to get all the entitlements in place, which is going to take 2.5 to 3 years. It's not until we perfected the entitlements that we can actually put a construction loan in place or go out and get limited partner equity. So all of the money has to come in the form of risk capital, which is why you need very broad financial shoulders to make a project like this happen.
Okay.
And then the third partner is Revitate, and they have the arena experience. The principal of Revitate is the co-owner of the Sacramento Kings, and they were the money and the brains behind the Golden One Center in Sacramento, which is a brand new arena. And they've now assembled a team that has a lot of experience in arena development. And behind that, look at all the expertise that's required to do a project at this scale and complexity, right? This is a rogues gallery of participants, and these projects required an enormous amount of talent to be realized at a very high level. And I want to stress that this isn't just about getting something built. This is about doing a brilliant project. That's our aspiration, is to do something that becomes a landmark in San Diego. And this is, as we keep reminding the team, it's a once in a generation opportunity to do something really special. And that's, of course, that's very motivating to all of us. And, I'm honored that I'm the project executive for this team. So I try to make sure that all of us stay very clear about that vision.
That's great.
So our team members bring an enormous amount of expertise. Bridge Housing is responsible for this mixed use community up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I did this project with Lo and my partner Pete Garcia called Idea District. Very successful mixed use project, has transformed the Upper East Village. This is also Bridge. This is affordable mixed use project in Jordan Downs in the Los Angeles area. Revitate, as I said, was the driving force behind the Golden One Center. There's a lot of similarities actually between Sacramento and San Diego in terms of the challenges that were faced in trying to keep the team, right? They kept their pro basketball team and build a new arena, but they did it brilliantly, and it's been very, very successful. It's almost $1 billion of investment between the arena and the redevelopment that surrounds it. The Revitate team also has principals who were responsible for the Chase Center, which is a home for the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco. I did the New Amsterdam Theater when I was with Walt Disney Company, which was a transformational development project on 42nd Street. It unleashed $2 billion of investment within the Times Square area within a couple of years. That's what happens. If you do it right and you have the right partners, it can unleash an enormous amount of economic development. But the other thing that was really revelatory to me is it unleashes an enormous amount of optimism, right? It starts to demonstrate what people can do together if they're collaborating around worthy causes. Our team has also done this, the soccer venue. Dennis Cruzan is one of our principals, was one of the key guys in doing Petco Park and the surrounding development, which was a transformational development in downtown San Diego. Our designer on the arena, Manica, did this fantastic stadium in Las Vegas. So we have focused a lot of energy in our plan on what we call the new arena district. It's not just a building, right? It's all about what kind of experience are we able to deliver to our visitors and our guests, even people that are not necessarily going to go to an event, who come here because of the excitement around music and around activities that are taking place in the arena. That on the right, you see a new hotel, 250 key hotel. In the middle is the 15,000 seat arena. On the left-hand side is a 3,500 capacity events hall. And it's all about activating the ground plane, right? It's all about making it beautiful, a combination of hardscape and landscape and retail and other kinds of activities that extend length of stay. Because one of the things,
architecture, beautiful architecture is.
Yeah, we like this image a lot because it starts to create a uniquely San Diego architecture. We're very indoor outdoor. You understand that, right? Where we have this magnificent climate, and we all love being outside. We love recreating, and we want to make a place that showcases that lifestyle, because we think that that's really a unique part of the San Diego brand that we're trying to put on display in this project. This is an interior view of the new arena. We don't have an NBA team or an NHL team, so music is going to be a big part of driving the economics. We're probably going to have to do 100 dates in order to make this successful. But we also do have, we have a hockey team, we have the Gulls, so it has to also accommodate hockey and lacrosse, indoor lacrosse. And we have the San Diego Loyal, and this region is soccer crazy, right? And the Loyal is now in its third year. They've already gotten a tremendous amount of community support. This year they're already 4-0 at home, 5-1. And they're playing at a very high level, and we love that, and we love the idea that they can be the thing that gets this project started. So we build a new modular stadium. These modular stadiums only take about 3 months to assemble, which is fantastic, right? So once we get approvals, we can build the stadium and they can be up and running by 2025. But it's not just about making something for the Loyal, because once you build this venue, you can activate it with all kinds of other uses. And so it has the benefit of being community friendly, and we can play rugby here, we can play lacrosse. There'll be all sorts of activations that take place. And as I said before, it's very hard in large scale to figure out how to get started. And this is a way that we can get started.
Okay.
I show this slide because I always want to remind everybody that we're making a place for people. That has to be first and foremost. What we say to the design team is don't just design buildings, design experiences, right? That's really what, that's the heart of this project, is the quality of environment. And Ben keeps reminding me, right, that we've got to make places that people just love. There's a texture to it. There's a quality, there's an authenticity to it that brings people back again and again and again.
I want to butt in here real quick and talk about some of the values that have been driven here are also informed by our experiences on the other side of the border in Tijuana, seeing just how much street retail there is and street commerce there is on the sidewalks that contributes so heavily to the quality of life and to the energy in the street. And we suffer from an absence of that here in San Diego.
Yes. Yeah.
Because of regulations and because of urban design issues and stuff like that. So one of our missions in this project is to create a place that foments cottage industry, street vendors, street life, real urban life, the way we see in Tijuana, and we want to emulate that over here too.
I see that you're giving a very important place of arts and culture for this project.
Absolutely. It's a part of my practice. I would never think about doing this project without engaging the arts community. We're going to create a new home for the new Children's Museum. But I think it's also really critically important that we engage artists early in helping us to think about the options for how art can get integrated, not just, plot pieces, but, how do we create an artistic attitude towards the landscape and the hardscape? And so there's beautiful opportunities to do things that become very distinctive and memorable.
And how do you do that, David? How do you do that? Do you ask advice to artists, or do you have special consultants in that issue?
I do. I have consultants that I've worked with over the years. I've been doing work with artists for the last 30 years. So I've got people that I love to bring into the process because they help me think about artists who would be a really wonderful fit for the project, right? Because, some would be great at doing fencing material. Some would be wonderful at doing, a huge mural. So you really have to think through what are the moments where we can insert art in order to do something that's really going to become distinctive here.
Okay. We had the experience that a lot of artists don't want to participate in new development. They want to basically participate in transformational development where old buildings get redone.
Yeah.
A lot of times
that's not been my experience. I think it's all about the way you approach them and the kind of engagement that you have with the artist, so that they feel that their contribution is genuine. You're not just, pasting their piece onto something. You're really asking them, how do we, in a collaborative way, come up with a design that gives you an opportunity to do something extraordinary and also makes the place that much richer. Okay,
that sounds good.
Sustainability.
So we have to avoid like greenwashing. We have to avoid art washing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It has to be done, from the heart, right? That's why we want to include these people, because it says something about our values. And I love that we keep coming back to that, right? Because it's so much about, bringing a point of view that the places we create can enrich people's lives, right? Look, I'm going to spend 8 or 10 years doing this. I don't want to do this unless it's something that really contributes to community at the end of the day, right? I mean, it has to make economic sense, of course, but it has to, not only does it have to address community issues, but I believe that this kind of work should address social issues as well. It's one of the reasons I'm really excited about the housing mix here, because I think we can demonstrate through our creativity that we can come up with housing models that makes housing more affordable, increases quality and makes it more affordable. And then all the other things Ben's talking about, where you make a space, a place that's rich with life and vibrancy, then the entire community, is elevated.
Very good.
So sustainability is a huge value right now. We've committed to net zero carbon impact. It's a lot of work to do that, but we think we have to model the kind of world that we want to create for ourselves, for our kids, for our grandkids. Anybody who's been Midway knows what a mess it is from a transit and a mobility standpoint. We need to have really big infrastructure moves, because we're not just putting an arena here, we're putting thousands and thousands of units of housing. That's trips, right? Because most people are going to drive. We hope over time that people will take other kinds of mobility, but today we have to solve for the problem of how do you get people in and out. So I won't get into all the details. It's another conversation, but we have some brilliant guys looking at different ways of moving people in and out, utilizing some of the existing road network, but building some new road network so that we can reconceptualize the way traffic moves in and out. Ben talked about pop-up pavilions, making retail much more accessible, utilizing some of the lessons from Kobe's, make it easy for people to get into business. Don't make it hard for them to get into business. And then, and then they constantly reinvent themselves. Education, childcare, communities have schools, right? And we want to be sure that our community has a childcare, has elementary schools. It may turn out that there's a need for a middle school. We're in conversations right now with San Diego Unified because we want to build schools into the plan so that this is a 15-minute walkable community.
Are there schools right now? Are they schools right now in the area that you?
No, there hasn't been for a long time because there's very little population that's in this area. There was years ago, but it shut down. So the conversation with Unified is, well, what's the right time to be able to build these schools so that it dovetails with the demand in the marketplace? So it's a really interesting question. And they have something similar that they did at Civita, where they worked with the developer to build a new school, elementary 1 through 5 for 500 kids. So they've got a model that we're talking about that I think could be successful here.
Okay.
And then creative office, COVID is demanded that all of us rethink space. And it's a fascinating time to think about, well, what are offices going to look? What's residential look like? How's retail going to change? All of us are, whether we like it or not, we're sort of amateur sociologists. We're trying to figure out how's the world changing and how do we make things that are relevant, for not just today, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I think office space will be relevant. We think we have a great location for it. And, we're excited at having the opportunity to invent it. It does come back for us to community. We've got to make sure we're doing something that people love. And that includes jobs too, right? We are a union town right now. 8 of our 9 council members are Democrats, and there's a lot of union money. Our mayor has got strong union backing. So we have proactively reached out to the building trades and to the operating unions. You see the commitments we've made to labor. We've made agreements with all of these people, and we're really thrilled because they then become advocates for our project. And that guy on the right-hand side, Bill Walton, he's an icon in town. And one of our partners is San Diego Sport Innovators, because we want to create a platform for all these fantastic entrepreneurial businesses that are very unique to San Diego. We also have Challenged Athletes Foundation is one of our partners. This entire project is going to be accessible. We're big advocates for universal design. We think that's a huge opportunity, again, to be a new model, a new paradigm for the way that places can be inclusive. And then Circulate San Diego, which is one of the most respected mobility groups in town, is also one of our partners. And this is a project that has the potential for massive economic and community benefits. We just, we got to really think through how to get the balance right, how to make sure that the economics support the project, that the capital markets invest in it, and that we are at the same time delivering significant amount of community benefits.
Hector, you had a question earlier about political momentum in a project that lasts through possibly several mayors. I personally see union support as one way of creating a broad base that creates large-scale public accountability for the leadership. Even if it changes, you've got a whole community behind a vision.
Yeah, it's a great perspective, right? Because we have seen over the last 5-10 years in San Diego a growing trend of the importance of labor. And so we really embrace that. And it's not inexpensive, right? We're going to be on prevailing wage, right, for all of our residential construction. So it adds costs. But if everybody at the table understands that it's adding costs, then you can have a rational conversation about what's the right way to allocate those additional costs, because it's creating better jobs. Right. So there's a clear benefit to doing it. You've just got to make sure, how do you not drive capital away? Because nobody benefits unless the project gets built. So this is our closing slide. We're in a competition, and we wanted to talk about why do we think we're better. We are creating a plan that has the most jobs and the greatest economic impact. We're the only ones that has 3 entertainment venues. We have a lot of housing, but it's not solely about numbers. It's about the quality of that housing. Right? We keep coming back to that quality of that environment. Our track record, our financial wherewithal, we think is superior to the competition. We've demonstrated our ability to deliver on large-scale projects. We've demonstrated the impact of our transformational projects. We think that's really important. And then finally, community engagement. We have been for the last 2 years the most actively involved in the community, and we think the community is going to step up and support us, and we look forward to that. So let me.
David.
Questions? Yes, Oscar.
Thank you, David. I'm Oscar Vega from Mexicali, not far away from Tijuana. I have a question about the general project. You are bidding for the city permits or for the city to allow you to do this, right? That's what I understand.
City owns, that's right. The city owns the land. So ultimately.
Oh, okay. That was my question. The city owns all of the land or just the Pechanga Arena part?
They own the whole site. They own they own the 48 acres, and then they they own the adjacent 17. So part of the economic deal will be the ground lease that gets structured between the public and the private entities.
So if they allow this, they will get rid of the business that are there already. I mean, there's restaurants, there are Soma, San Diego, I don't know.
Yes, they're all on ground leases, and those ground leases expire, right? So what they anticipate is that they would be replaced. We, as the developer, would replace all of those uses over the next 10 to 15 years.
You'll keep Phil's barbecue somewhere in the project.
Yeah, you know, so Phil's wants to move over into the new project, right?
Oh,
yeah,
I was worrying about that. Thank you.
They wrote us a note. Funny you should say, they wrote us a note yesterday saying, "Hey, congrats on getting shortlisted. Remember that conversation we had? We want to move over when the arena district is complete. We want to put our new store over there." This is it's a very successful store for them.
I was just trying to understand who owns the land. So all the land is city owned right now. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Charlene has a question. Go ahead, Charlene.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I don't know, I didn't see if you show us about the parking. The parking, it's obviously underground, right?
No,
but,
we have. It's a great question. It's a very high water table, right? Where water is 5 feet below. So all the parking's above grade. So each of the uses has its own parking included. And then we build that parking garage that you saw has 2,500 parking spaces for event parking and overflow parking.
So there is parking at the street level?
Yeah, there's a podium. We create a podium that gets wrapped by retail or residential that has parking for each of the individual uses. And then we have that additional 2,500 parking spaces. And by the way, that parking garage is being built to be transformed into something other than parking in the future, because we're looking at a world where there's going to be decreased demand for parking spaces. We want to make sure that we're future-proofing the project so that even though we're spending 25, 30,000 a space for parking, we can still utilize it down the road when there's not going to be demand for that as a parking space.
Okay. And in that subject, how do you incentivize mobility without cars, without automobiles? I mean, what is the, because if you build.
It's a great comment. Well, so we met with Sandag, which is our regional transportation agency, and Sandag wants to put a mobility hub in this area that would make it easier for people to either take trolley or take train or take bike or take other kinds of micro mobility measures. It's not going to happen overnight, but we believe that we can start to shift, create a mode split, if you will, but only if it's convenient and it's cost effective. People make rational choices about their mobility choices, right?
And
so,
it's mixed use. I'm sorry for interrupting. It's mixed use too, no?
Yes.
You have all you need on this
exactly
complex.
Right. It's exactly right. So if we create a market there and we create schools there and the things that people need on a daily needs basis, it makes it a lot easier to reduce the total number of trips. And that's really one of the keys is reducing total trip generation.
Okay, very good. Jose Guillermo, you want to ask?
No termino. Sorry, I'm gonna say something in Spanish because I'm more fluid in Spanish. La gran decisión de aquí es que quitaron en el nivel de calle el estacionamiento. O sea, si se fijan, I love the building, what I don't like of the building is the parking right now, how it is right now. So, aprovechar las grandes planchas de estacionamiento en el centro de la ciudad es donde tienes espacio para affordable housing, para espacio dentro de la ciudad y para todo este tipo de cosas. Es como una respuesta bien obvia de los diseñadores urbanos, ¿no? Y eso es lo que te genera mejor comunidad para hacer las cosas más caminables. No es lo mismo caminar por una plancha de estacionamiento del Costco, estar caminando por varios edificios que te generan esta comunidad y varias plantas de comercio que te generan este como acobijamiento, vamos a decir, ¿no? Cuando tú caminas una ciudad. En un contexto latinoamericano, pues quizás el edificio se hubiera aprovechado porque no tenemos el presupuesto que se tiene allá mis maestros siempre me decían, aprovecha lo que ya existe, pero en toda la parte de la recuperación del estacionamiento es donde tenemos gran oportunidad aquí en Tijuana de hacer proyectos como este, creo yo. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Benjamín, ¿lo quieres traducir, Benjamín?
She's saying that the approach of turning surface parking into a walkable urban realm that's retail wrapping, parking structures and stuff like that. She sees that there's a huge opportunity for that kind of approach in Tijuana because it is very effective at transforming unusable space or partially usable space into, livable space.
Right.
Qué buen traductor eres, ¿eh? Bien.
Gracias, Ben.
José Guillermo.
De nada.
Yeah, I believe they addressed a couple of questions that I had for the parking and for the transportation hubs. I'm also thinking of or wondering, what will you build besides the temporary soccer stadium? Will you build temporary housing or modular housing that can be moved? I saw what you did in the idea district with containers, so
Right.
I believe that can be a fit to probably change that and put it somewhere else, and it could be a good investment. I don't know.
It's an interesting idea. We hadn't actually thought about doing temporary housing as a way to get started, but we absolutely looking at modular. We're going to look at everything to try to figure out what's the right mix that delivers quality, but also can be done cost effective. The nice thing about modular, even though right now it's not cheaper, is you can reduce the amount of construction impact. Right.
Yep.
Again, you can deliver it more quickly. So that might be one of the techniques that we use to get things started more quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had a whole lot of conversations about modular housing, but if we were to, if we get selected and we move forward, the way this whole project will appear is it'll seem more modular and more temporary in the beginning years with the modular stadium, all the activation strategies that we're going to use with container parks and pop-up events and stuff like that. And then it'll look more and more permanent as the years go by and the towers start to get built. And so it's going to have this evolving character.
Okay, muy bien. Carlos Trejo. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. David, do you guys have any projection in terms of what would happen with the surrounding areas in terms of development similar to the one you guys are trying to create? You think there will be some sort of gentrification, something that has happened?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a number of property owners that have already reached out to us and said, hey, we're rooting for you, because if you're successful, it opens the door for a redevelopment of our area, particularly in that area to the north of Kurtz, which is basically industrial right now. So what character that takes, we don't really know, but it's clear that if we're successful and we start to inspire quality development, that the land values are going to go up and densification is going to go up.
And in a lot of other contexts, we would worry about displacing people, about the negative sides of gentrification. But this is not a residential neighborhood; it's a commercial area. So you've got Home Depot, you've got strip clubs, you've got lumber yards. So we see any kind of catalytic process as a completely positive one in this case.
And if we create the model where over 50% of the housing is either affordable or middle income, and that continues, then we're really starting to address the much bigger need in San Diego for affordable housing.
David, is there any comparable project already being developed somewhere in another city where you have this combination of affordable housing with regular housing that you could take as a model, as a benchmark?
Yeah, a couple of the projects that I showed you, the Bridge is working on has a mix, Jordan Downs and Balboa Reservoir. I don't think any of those have the extensive entertainment venues that we've included here. So that piece of it is new, and it's very tricky. Trying to figure out how, from a social mix standpoint, how do you make a wonderful residential community at the same time that you're creating this more high energy entertainment district? It's a very interesting planning challenge.
And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to outsmart the suburbs, because there's this tendency for people to create a family and they move out to a single family home. And so part of our product mix is 2-3 bedrooms, trying to separate some of the family living from the entertainment district, so that there's a little bit of distance and you get comfort and quiet. So we're trying to stay ahead of the demand, because as people grow up, they tend to leave the city. We want to keep people around.
Yes.
David, there was one other thing that I thought was really important to some of the initial discussions that we had as a team, and you didn't bring it up, and I was wondering if you could maybe speak to it a little bit. I think one of the things that's really important for a project like this is that it's unique to the place that it's being placed in. And I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of cities make is that they try to import great things, right? And then what happens is they may be importing something that's great, but maybe it's already been done, or it's not necessarily unique or characteristic of the context that it's in. And so that was something that we approached this particular project with, that the idea that it's got to be unique to San Diego. And I want to just, I want to really sort of stress that, because, you know, one of the things that you guys might all be aware of by now, but San Diego and Tijuana have been selected as the World Design Capital for 2023, Ben, is that right? 2024. And so, you know, the eyes of the world will be on this region, and there's a reason for that. It's because there's some really great, amazing things happening here, and I want to say especially in Baja. So I think that, you know, when we consider big things like this, it's really important to not try to bring something in from outside. One of the discussions that we had as a group early on was, you know, is this kind of like LA Live? And you know, right away we decided there's no way this could be anything like LA Live. That would be absolutely the wrong thing to do here in San Diego. And that's when David Malmuth just came up with, I think, what was uniquely San Diego in so many ways. And so I was wondering if you could maybe just mention that a little bit, David.
Yeah, it's a really important conversation. So to me, development should be driven by ideas, right? And the idea that animated me as I thought about this is, how do you make some place that showcases who we are as San Diegans? We love being outdoors. We love exercising. We love health. How do we make an environment where all of those values are on display? You know, where we capture that kind of essence of who we are as San Diegans, and we make a lifestyle, including sports and entertainment and food and wellness and all of those things that, you know, that are kind of a part of what makes our quality of life so extraordinary in this part of the world. How do we make that, show that into the DNA and the fabric of this project?
I want to build off of what you're saying. There's something that is not represented in some of the visuals we had, because it's at the detail level, but some of the stuff when we were designing the landscape spaces and sketching them out, we were envisioning places like climbing walls, skate parks, right, running loops. And it was all with the mentality that in the 21st century, the old paradigm of sports as mostly a spectator thing is actually now balanced out by where the user is the protagonist too. Right. So the invention of the selfie camera, the GoPro, all that is very much in line with San Diego culture of being out and doing things. Right. So you watch, but you also participate. And that's very much in the DNA of the design. Right.
Like, and I think that, you know, the whole spectator sport thing is really something that, you know, society has grown up with. I mean, literally since, you know, Greek civilization thousands of years ago. And I think participatory sports have also been a thing, but not like they've become in the 21st century. I think everybody wants to be a part of something. They want to interact in things. They want to participate, not just watch it or be a spectator. So that's kind of an exciting model, I think.
Right, and that's one of the reasons that we reached out to San Diego Sport Innovators, because there's 130 companies that are being incubated in San Diego that are all about participating, right? Whether it's biking or hiking or tri-sports or surfing or golf or tennis or whatever, all of those companies have a stake in San Diego, and they have a huge following in San Diego. And on any given day, I live in North County, on any given day, I walk on my door and there's bikers and there's people jogging and people taking their surfboard and, you know, doing their workout. And so it's part of who we are as San Diegans. And there's really no place right now that, from a real estate standpoint, that captures that kind of energy. So we think this project is uniquely well situated to be able to do that.
Great. Nora Marquez, you have a question.
Sí, ¿qué tal? Hola, muchas gracias. Pues bueno, muy interesante todo, muchísimas gracias. Pues no es nuevo para nosotros y me gusta porque abre esta oportunidad de meterlo en este mercado, ¿no? Y parte de lo que nosotros estamos viendo ahorita en el Implan es precisamente estos ejercicios de cómo poderlos aterrizar en esta nueva actualización del programa de desarrollo urbano, el PUCPT, pero no nomás en propiedad privada, en propiedad pública, sino también en la propiedad privada. Y que estos big boxing shopping que tenemos identificados como Plaza Río, Viva Tijuana, podemos llevar a cabo estos proyectos, ¿no? O sea, ya estarles poniendo dejarles hacer esta propuesta. Y ahorita haciendo estos cálculos nosotros aquí de qué representan sus acres y sus square feet con respecto a nuestras superficies, no estamos mal, son 250 viviendas por hectárea más o menos lo que ellos traen, pero para un proyecto de uso mixto, ¿no? Y aquí generalmente están dándose únicamente para desarrollos habitacionales que rondan en 600 viviendas por hectárea. Entonces, hay de 400 viviendas por hectárea, entonces, pero nada más puro habitacional. Y si un proyecto de esta magnitud se puede llevar con una densidad aproximadamente, por los cálculos que nos están dando, de 250 viviendas por hectárea, pues es lógico que si se puede allá, con mucho mayor razón se pudiera aquí, ¿no?
Exacto. Benjamín, translate, please.
Bueno, no sé si escuché bien, pero I think what she said was that they transferred the numbers metric, and we're looking at our project as about around 250 dwelling units per hectare, and that's the maximum development regulation in Tijuana allows in some areas for up to 600 dwelling units per hectare, and then I missed out on the question.
We have a lot of old shopping centers that are the big boxes that we could use to transform and make this combination of social housing with other mixed use development.
We are doing something just similar as theirs, but we're not. Right now, the official density is 180 house units per hectare.
Ah, 180.
And now most of the developments are having 400 or 600 housings per hectare, but just one single use for housing. And we're just trying to make it possible that these kind of projects can be, for the future, can be built not just on a public properties, they can use on a private properties also, because we're having a different projects now that we are making like a business for making que sea posible el negocio, tanto en propiedad privada, que pues tiene un costo la tierra, y en propiedad pública que el ayuntamiento puede ofrecerlo, ¿no? Y cuando ofrece el ayuntamiento su propiedad pública, pues también que vaya esa connotación de que haya vivienda asequible en ese desarrollo. ¿Por qué? Porque pues está haciendo esa aportación el gobierno de la tierra, ¿no?
Okay.
So they're trying. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, it's a little bit of the same issue that we are in the process of eventually using even private land to transform it where we can have both uses, but not only residential use, but we have to combine it with all the other necessities that the community will have. Basically, that's the message.
Hector, unfortunately, I've got a 12 o'clock. I've got a hard stop. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Yes.
Delightful to have a chance to meet you all. If you want to do a follow-up, I'm happy to do it. But it would be wonderful if there's a continuing dialogue, because there's lots that we can learn from you, and hopefully there's some things we're doing that you find interesting as well. So I would look forward to having another conversation.
Thank you very much, David, for participating. It was a great conversation, and yes, let's repeat this soon, okay? And to everybody, thanks for everybody for joining us. We also want to finish up at 12 punctually.
All right.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias.
Que tengan buenas vacaciones. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
Van a recibir la grabación pronto.
Take care.
Saludos.
Gracias.
Gracias, adiós.
Gracias.
Y terminamos como debe de ser.